Hi, fiction writers. We are back for another week of fiction writing. This week we continue with Unit 4, from scenes to series, and you will continue writing your very own series. In fact, this week is a bit special because we are going to celebrate your first box set of work. Our first lesson for the week is a continuation of writing dialogue in our series. Dialogue, again, is the conversation between characters. Many of you have been doing an awesome job putting some dialogue into your stories, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. Before we get into this more, I want you to stop and do some thinking for me. I want you to think about all the time since you've gotten up this morning. I want you to think about some of the things that you've said or some things that your family members have said. For instance, I'm hungry. I don't feel like doing my schoolwork. Let's go for a bike ride. Hey, Mom, have you seen my sneakers? They're just a few examples of things that might be communicated on a daily morning. For the lesson today, and as we write your series, I want you to think of the many ways that people talk. Sometimes people yell, sometimes people scream, sometimes people whisper. You can tell how a person is feeling and speaking just through their tone or their excitement level. And you can do this with your characters in your story too. So writers, your teaching point for today, for mini lesson 8, is writers make characters in their stories speak in many ways, just like people do in real life. Our goal today is to add a little more dialogue than what you have been doing, and to add that dialogue in a juicier way than some of us have been doing. Something I want you to think about is dialogue can happen in more than one part of your story. Many of you have been adding some dialogue, some communication in one part of your story. Robert said to the dog, "Stop barking." And then you might not add any more. So our goal today is to add some more and make it juicier. I'm going to give you just a couple tips on how to make the dialogue, the communication between characters, better. One thing we've been noticing, one character in your story often does all of the talking. That means you have started off your dialogue great, but your character isn't getting any responses back. So maybe think about, instead of just one character speaking, make sure that another character is responding back or also speaking. Another thing that we, as we become second grade writers, hope to do, instead of saying the character said, we can be juicier than that. Just like we talked about all the different ways people talk. We can whisper, we can shout, we can scream, we can say something calmly, we can use examples of ways that the character may have sounded. The mom whispered to her child, "Do not leave my side." The boy shouted, "Stop, ice cream truck, I want ice cream." These are just a few examples of ways to make your writing juicier. Instead of saying the character said, show emotion and feeling in your dialogue. Another thing to think about is not only can dialogue show emotion and feeling, but it can give your stories action. If you're using dialogue between characters like, "Stop," shouted the girl. "I can't hear you," screamed the boy. These will help your readers really feel what your characters are experiencing. Not only can you do this through dialogue, but when you're drawing illustrations to match, be sure that you show that action and movement. All these little things, the dialogue, the action, the feeling and emotion, will make your readers want to read on. So today, my fiction writers, before we send you off to write the next story in your series, I want to give you 2 goals. Yes, you're going to write another story in your series. You're going to develop your character more. You're going to think about different problems and adventures that your character can go on. You're writing your next story in your series. With that, I want you to think about all the things that serious fiction writers do. You add problems, develop characters, create cool settings, maybe sometimes repeat the problems, and always find a way to fix or solve the trouble that is happening. You add dialogue and feeling and emotion and movement. But today, your added goal is to not only add just a little bit of dialogue, but add juicy communication, juicy dialogue between characters. All the anchor charts from the past weeks of fiction writing are still listed. Today, you also will have a chart that will give you tips on better ways to improve your dialogue that's being added to your stories. So, off you go. Show us some exciting, juicy dialogue between characters and keep your series going. Happy writing.